Welcome to Heaven's Edge. What form of nutrient exchange is appropriate for your life form?
An ale, I guess?
Sympathizing ale?
Alright, thanks. Let's try it. It's actually pretty good.
Attention Spacers, welcome back to another thrilling episode of Adventures in the Void. We are a sci-fi tabletop role-playing game discussion transmission. I am Jake.
And I'm Ross.
Join us as we trade tales and celebrate the beauty and wonder of the cosmos.
Welcome back to the Adventures in the Void Spacecast. My name's Ross, also known as Mythic Mountains. Here we chat about science fiction tabletop role-playing games for Season 2, especially one called Traveler RPG. And tonight we're doing another Traveler chat. And I'm joined tonight with a guest who has acted, in my opinion, as a kind of historian in the Traveler community, gathering together the stories, ideas, and interviews of creators and designers and all the people in the Traveler community, gathering all those interviews and holding them on his YouTube channel as a kind of repository of wisdom and knowledge. So I think it's an invaluable resource for the future of science fiction role-playing. Frank Succardi is also a game developer, created a Virtual GM, an AI-driven role-playing experience for solo gaming, which we'll chat about later. And Cosmic Drifter, a sci-fi Japanese role-playing game inspired by Traveler, and CyborgPrime Games, where, as I said, he has this repository of knowledge and advice and interviews, but he's also made digital resources for Traveler referees, from virtual tabletop tools to other things. Welcome to the podcast, Frank.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I just want to ask. I want to hop right into. I want to ask about a bunch of stuff. I want to ask about your experience with Traveler, but CyborgPrime. How did this? What is the genesis of starting to interview all these people that are in the classic 2D6 sci-fi and Traveler RPG community?
I wanted to. Well, let me take a step back. I was in a medieval Renaissance reenactment group for a long time, and I used to host a May Day event there. And I eventually stopped going, and I was like, well, you know, I'm focusing all the time that I used to do on that. I'm focusing on my sci-fi pursuits of my love of sci-fi gaming. And so I was like, I'd like to do some sort of event that would take place of that. And so I just kind of sat on it for a while, and then I was sitting around playing Traveler with my friends, and I said, you know what? The event should be Traveler Day on May 1st. And they said, why? And I said, because it's May Day. And, you know, bad joke, I know. Bad joke aside, and I know I'm not the first person to think of that, but I am the first person to make an event out of it.
Yeah.
So, so I thought...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go on.
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, how long has May Day been going on, and tell us about May Day, the May Day
This will be, 2024 will be this 6th year, and the way it started was, about the time, when I was 49, I had a heart attack wrangling some wild mountain puppies, and I couldn't go back to my stressful job, and so while I was recovering, my friends would come and babysit me because I was at risk of like suddenly croaking. I had to wear like a defibrillator vest. It was very stressful. Anyway, my friends would come over and babysit me, and by that we'd like sit around and watch like old reruns of TV shows and stuff. And I was like, you know what, this is boring. Let's play Traveler. I'll GM, and because we all have our old, I brought out our old characters and stuff. And so we started playing and stuff, and I brought in some new friends who've never played before but have heard of it, and they really enjoyed it. And so I got out my old boxes and stuff, and I was looking through these things, and I saw some, like, I had all these, so many subsectors that I generated, so many characters, so many lists of things and new equipment and stuff, and I was like, I wonder if any of this is like commercially viable. So I looked on, I did some research, and I found out that there was an OpenGL for Traveler, and that I was like late to the game by 5 years or something. So I thought, well, let me look into this and see if this is something I can do. So meanwhile, I was thinking, when I found out about Traveler, it was because I just stumbled across it in a hobby shop, and we don't really have hobby shops anymore. So how are people going to stumble upon Traveler nowadays? And I thought, well, why don't I put together an event, and I'll invite some of the folks who are involved in publishing Traveler, and and invite them to just come and sit for some interviews. And the worst they can say is no. And so I did, and surprisingly, everybody was super friendly. I didn't have to like really coax anybody. I mean, I just put it out there. I told them what I was trying to do. I just wanted to promote Traveler. It gave me so many thousands of hours of like something to do when I was a teenager. My family would go on trips to places where I didn't have friends or didn't know the relatives or whatever. I'd bring my Traveler books and spend time like rolling up subsectors, thinking of adventures and writing them down and stuff. So I wanted to kind of, the hobbies will die unless you bring fresh blood in. So you need to like always be cultivating a community around this product. And so I was like, here's how I can contribute. I can use my TV and radio experience and my video editing to put together a little video. It'll just be a podcast, because back then people didn't want to be on camera and stuff. And when I pitched it that way, everybody was agreeable. And so that first year we had Mark Miller, and then we had a few other folks who were like Traveler adjacent from the Cepheus engine world. I wanted to support all of the editions. I started on a classic, but anytime something had Traveler name on it, I bought that thing. And so as the editions progressed, I always made sure I was on the current edition, and I always liked the current edition. I never really pined for the old one, because you can't really go back. The gaming, there's been new mechanics and new things discovered about gaming as time progresses, and Traveler needs to add those things in to keep up and compete with the other game. So that was kind of my philosophy, and so I just followed it through to the Mongoose, and I was like, you know what, I really like this. I like their life events. I like all their different things. So I just really wanted to support that, and so that's kind of the origin of the event itself.
So for those listening, we've done a few of these Traveler chats now, but Mark Miller, creator, right, at the time worked for Game Designers Workshop, published the game in 1977, had several other people on it, but Mark Miller is it fair to say, largely credited as the creator of Traveler, right? And then
he's the copyright holder, as I understand. So, and I think maybe the last surviving person from GDW. But He's we call him the creator or the emperor, and yeah, he's the one. He's recognized as the originator, even though it was put together by a team of people at a gaming company.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so what was it like to? I don't know if you already knew Mark Miller, if you talked to him before, but okay, you didn't. So then, what was it like to chat with Mark Miller, especially being a kid and like you're saying you had those presumably the 3 books. I don't know if you had a later edition, but and you carried it around with you, made subsectors and stuff, and then you get to talk to Mark Miller. What was that like?
Right. Well, it's kind of weird because, back in the day, there was this thing called Grip, and it was the precursor to today's virtual tabletops. And there was a traveler version, and basically you could make a shared tabletop and character sheets and automated things. There was a I don't. This is what I understand. I don't never talk to anybody in Traveler about it, but they didn't want there was a problem with computerizing the rule set and maintaining copyright.
Yeah.
So I think that project was ended. Anyway, that's when I was like, I really like this, and I'm already a programmer. I write utility programs all the time. Like when you're first learning Traveler and you come across the Universal World Profile, it's like this 10-digit thing, and it's got each digit place can be 15 different things or more, and so it's really hard to like store all of that like chart decoding in your brain, and it's a pain to like have to look it up every time you're going, oh, let's compare this planet to this planet. Okay, this one's an A in the first place and this one's a C on the first place, and that means so I wrote computer utilities to decode those things and make my own like Traveler subsector catalogs or distance calculators. You'll see those on my website too if you page around, if you look for Traveler utilities. There's like a distance calculator, how long it'll take to fly a certain distance with certain G-rated engines, stuff like that. So when
I spent so much time we're doing a classic Traveler campaign, and every other episode on this podcast is the actual play of the classic Traveler campaign, and I love it. I love the simulation. Like I love that, you're going to come into a solar system, and let's say you want to go to the gas giant. It's going to take a certain amount of time according to the chart, and you're going to have space encounters, and I don't even know what those are. I don't know what's going to happen out there, and that's really thrilling to me. But the simple related calculations of force equals mass times acceleration and distance equals rate times time over and over and over again, even though I should be pretty savvy with that. It would take...
you learn the formulas.
Yeah, I mean, it takes time, and that's time that the players are playing, because I was usually the one doing the math on,
Right.
how long is it going to take to go, is it going to take 5 hours or 5 days, and interpolating in between results on the chart and everything. So, yeah, I wish I'd seen those tools. That would have been handy.
Yeah. So I have like some things like random items you might find in somebody's stateroom in church, like
Oh, that's cool.
random sci-fi like credits or a gun or toys or an ID thing or a genetically engineered pet or like a cybernetic pet or different kinds of fun stuff. I've always liked to do like generative stuff, and I usually just program the back end. There's a really cool program called Inspiration Pad, and it lets you create. It's free. You can download it from NBOS software. That's letter N and then BOS. And they also have another program called Astrosynthesis that will plot out like star systems, and then you can connect them all with all the ones that are within 2 light years or 3 light years, and see like trade routes appearing and stuff. Super
Wow.
cool. 3D
Yeah,
things
that's
you can
really
turn
cool.
from any angle. Some sci-fi authors actually use that to set up their setting, like a
Wow.
local cluster of suns and worlds and stuff. Is pretty cool.
Wow.
So anyway, the program inspiration pad, you can program it with your own charts, and then have it roll. So you can make it come up with, you can make like encounter charts, and you're basically like building up a sophisticated Mad Lib, right? So you can have like charts rolling on other charts, and so you can say you run across some number of something, and they are hostile, friendly, neutral, or whatever, and you just click generate until it generates a thing that sounds good to you, and then you take it from there. So it helps with as a GM, you can get like brain fatigue and having to always come up with original plot. So it's nice to kind of have like a, I don't want to say like a brain seeder, to kind of suggest an idea, and then you can and then you can take it from.
Yeah. On a few previous episodes, we talked about like the difference. This Play Club and this podcast is traditionally, season 1 was about indie fantasy role-playing games, and we mostly play classic ones. And so in classic fantasy role-playing games, it's full of tables. But I'm fairly new as far as a Traveler referee. I've ran the modern one a few times, and then I'm running this classic campaign now for about 9 months, and then I've played in a few modern ones, a few modern games. That's just been in the past few years. But with fantasy role-playing games, I feel like I could do that off the top of my head right now. And part of it is genre literacy. So I sort of slipped on genre literacy, and then there's a whole body of experience like coming into Traveler, and I'm thrilled by this. But I mentioned this to a few other guests that in my high school library, they had golden sci-fi era authors. They had Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov and stuff. But this stuff is naughty, and it wasn't allowed. Like, because it's kind of sexy, it's kind of dirty, the pulp sci-fi stuff. And it seems like Traveler is...
Like Venus on the Half Shell?
Yeah,
Have you read that?
No, I finished Space Viking a few months ago. I'm working my way through the... what's his name? E.C. Tubb, Doomerest.
Doomerest.
Yeah, I'm working my way through that. There's always kind of some dame that he's, got all worked up, and it's always some kind of operatic, pulpy kind of story, and it doesn't have a lot of sci-fi. It doesn't have a lot of gizmos. Well, anyways, I'd never read any of it. So there's the genre literacy problem where I think all of us have a shared... if you're in the West, in the Western Hemisphere, you probably have in your genetic code this idea of unicorns and fairies and stuff. And the other thing that you naturally have is a room with a roof and a door. And how long does it take me to walk 500 feet or 500 yards or meters or whatever? But I don't have a natural inclination toward how long would it take me to travel underwater in a submersible, going at, 50 kilometers per hour. How long does it take if I'm able to go 2 times the acceleration rate of gravity toward a gas giant? And what effect would the gas giant's gravity have on me? That is not a part of that's not a part of my daily experience. So you're talking about like GM fatigue. It's challenging, and then there's the expectation that Traveler, man, you got some fuel scoops on that thing. Where can you not go?
Right.
Well, you can.
My philosophy on that is, you might have seen me say this around. Damn it, Jim! I'm a role-playing game, not an astrophysics simulator.
That's true too. I've heard that a couple of times. Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'm. I got to the point where it doesn't really matter. If it's accurate, it's going to take a couple hours to get from here to there, or it's not going to take a couple of hours. Or what does it matter? Because in the end, you're suspending disbelief for everything else. Why not the travel time?
Yeah.
it's the stories are really about what happens to the people while they're traveling. It's not about their engines or how fast they go or or how anti-gravity really works. It's just it works through high tech magic. I mean, like, or whatever. On Star Trek, the people just in Star Wars too. They don't stop and go, how do these things? How are we not flying out of the engine room right now? Or how are we standing up? It just does, and whatever it is, it's so reliable that they think of it like a big lighter. It just works. You don't really think of the little machine that's in there making it work, but somehow you press this button and fire comes out the other end and it propels your ship through space. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I'd rather, the slog of of being like a I don't know, like a job simulator. I already have a job. I don't want another second make-believe job, even if it's in space doing cool stuff. So when I started playing when I was a teenager. Just a second. The loyal dog does not like to be out of the room. Hi, Freckles. All right. So anyway, where was I going? I was just thinking that stuff is all cool and all, but how it works, I enjoyed the Star Trek technical manual. I like to see all the cool. Mostly I like the decals and the explanation for the uniforms and the cutaways of the ship and stuff. But dilithium crystals and hyperspace or warp space, all of that stuff is just a trope that you agree on collectively as a collective focal point. We all know. We're all familiar. If you're familiar with sci-fi pop culture, you're familiar with Star Trek. You're familiar with Star Wars. So you can just say, well, however they are doing it is how we do it too, and it makes it more familiar and kind of takes that out of the equation. You can use it as a MacGuffin, or there's something wrong with the air filter on the space station, and we're all going to die unless somebody figures out how to fix it. Well, how does the air filtration system work? It doesn't matter. We just have to fix it. We need these parts. And so when you were saying earlier that you feel like you naturally can just come up with fantasy stuff, you can do the same thing with sci-fi. Just think of it in a fantasy way. You're still rescuing the princess. That's something you do you rescue Princess Leia. That's what you do in medieval fantasy games. You rescue the princess there too. So when you have these kind of like space opera games, you can do a lot of this like mental crossover and kind of use your fantasy background as a familiar touchstone, but carry it forward. Instead of a princess in a tower, it's a princess on a space station. Instead of a evil dragon, it's a rogue ogre, or a bolo, a cybernetic tank gone rogue, and it's coming towards the population center, and you have to stop it. Or instead of the robber baron who's terrorizing the towns and taxes, now it's the noble of the planet, and his tax collectors are coming. So you see, like a lot of that stuff you can just carry over, and people don't notice, or if they do notice, they don't care, because it's familiar. A lot of things I notice when people first start playing Travelers, they have like decision paralysis, because like, what do you do? What can you do? You don't know. What am I supposed to do? Well, you're an ex-scout, or you're an ex-Navy guy, or a Marine, or a scholar. You can do whatever you want. If you're a scholar, go research stuff, or join a crew and do those things. So I kind of try to run my games like more like ensembles of ensemble casts, like a Star Trek with a mixture of people of different skill levels. You have let's talk about Next Generation, for instance. So you have you have young Wesley, and then you have the other guys who are like in their 30s, and then you have like Dr. Pulaski, she's in her 60s. You have Captain Picard, he's an older guy too, and so you have a mix of like younger, inexperienced people, older, more experienced people, more wise, and then like a mix of people in between, all with their own skill sets. And so I try to make the game more like cinematic and technical, unless there's got to be something for technical-minded people in there. So if you want to, modify the ship, or modify your gear, or spend time tinkering, or run drones, or things like that, that's more, I think, conducive to role-playing than stopping and looking on charts and going, oh, it's going to be 10 hours or 5 hours, or wait a minute, did we calculate that wrong? We're really going in relation to the planet, which is moving in the other direction, So, like, how much realism do you want? Did you just, I don't know. I guess you got to judge your players, right?
Yeah, we did it as somewhat of an experiment. That's certainly not my usual style by any means. I usually prefer something much more improvisational, but actually, to back up, part of the reason we did that, the simulationist experiment, and there's limits to that simulationism. It's still, a story still emerged. We still did our play acting. We invested in our characters. We did, and they still drove things. Like whatever they wanted to do and the choices they make are still, what matters ultimately. But as a background, we sort of had a background simulation, which involved the hard math. And the reason we did that was Father Chris, my co-host for these Traveler Chats, who sadly couldn't make it tonight, but he and I play in another game that's a retro clone of original Dungeons and Dragons, and we went into that with a kind of as an experiment to say, hey, what if we just did exactly what this said and see what happens? And just as an experiment. That experiment was wildly successful, and that game is on its third year now. And I don't know if you ever played games like, and both of us really did the bulk of our Dungeons and Dragons experience is actually modern D&D. And so to me, it was like going from a AAA video game that sort of tells you who you are and tells you you're the hero of the story, and kind of lays out a path to, if you've ever played a game like Dwarf Fortress, that's what we kind of compare it to, where it's just like chaos and you have no idea what's going to happen, and something just kind of comes out of that. And they've loved it. So that the basis of the experiment with Classic Traveler was to say, what if we took the facsimile edition of the 3 black books and just did it, and just see what happens, like actually just do whatever it says. And for one thing, and some of the grognards and Traveler don't like me saying this, but this is just my observation as a guy coming in and reading the book. It seems to me the author was pretty story-minded from the beginning, and that was actually kind of revolutionary. That's just my observation. It really hits that in the 1981 Starter Edition, where I can't remember, is it Lauren Wiseman? I think is she the author? The author of the 1981 Starter Edition, I can't remember, but she used cinematic terms. She said, in fact, I believe it even says, imagine you were a part of a set and you're directing this story, but you're going to be more participative, and the actors are actually going to kind of guide the story with you. And it says that in the Starter Edition for Classic Traveler, and I mean, how ahead of its time is that? That is ahead of Tracy Hickman by 2 or 3 years, who wrote the Principles of Play for Ravenloft, who said that every dungeon ought to have a satisfactory ending. There ought to be a decent expectation of survival. This preceded Tracy Hickman's Principles. Anyways, we were like, let's just try it. And part of that was the hard sci-fi of, and a lot of it's abstracted anyway when I read it. because it doesn't tell you. Someone brought this up recently. It doesn't tell you where you'll arrive in a solar system. As best I can tell in the original rules, it just says, look, you're going to come to a solar system, you're going to be there about a week, and that week involves being able to get fuel, make it to a starport, and have necessary leave. And within a week, you're going to be able to roll for a patron once. And so it didn't give anything for that. But if it says, hey, you want to go to a gas giant from a primary world, then it says, here's a suggested time and rate of it. Anyways, though, what you're saying, that's been the consensus. So most
I can feel like when you're the GM and you're setting up the adventure, maybe hit those charts just so that everything's consistent or something. But I mean, when you're the GM, you have an idea how you want this to go, and you have an idea that, okay, when the characters get to this place, they're going to have, or I'm going to give them, or they're going to want whatever, or I'm going to figure out that they want so much time to prep or do something there. So part of that's going to be going to the gas giant and refueling, and part of that's going to be encountering a pirate, or part of that's going to be encountering a rogue mining drone that thinks their ship is an asteroid, or something. I don't ever want to have to argue with the players about how long something's going to take. Because it says that that's how long it's supposed to be.
Yeah, for sure.
I just roll with the story.
Yeah, and what we tried to do, another thing is in between sessions is when we would do all especially the shopping. Like, hey, we're not going to do, we're not going to do any shopping.
You could make a whole.
Just tell me next time.
Shopping.
You've got your 15,000 credits or whatever you got. You just tell me. You're in Flammarion, so they have, what they have. So I don't know,
right.
But but one of the things that got really simulationist that was interesting that we tried out was the belt strike module, the one for the Bowman system, because it has all those charts. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I haven't played it.
It has a like a chart, and it says, all right, it describes the actual kind of astrography of the Bowman solar system. And Bowman Prime is a gas giant, and then you have the main asteroid belts, the belts for the planetary belt, and then you have points along the belt, what do you call it, the Trojan point, and the what's the other one, the point ahead and the point behind of it, in the orbital path. And then you had the multiple belts in the solar system, because Bowman is just like a bunch of asteroid belts, right? And it would have charts that would kind of detail, all right, if you're trying to get from Alpha Garrison over to Königsrock, it's going to take about this time at 1G. If you're trying to get over here, it'll take this. And in the process of that, in Claim Jumpers, someone's out to try to kill you. Because you have a claim that you're trying to get. So they would have a ship. Initially, it tried to just follow them, and so they plotted this course, to this one point, and then they interrogated the ship, and they're hey, we see you there. How you doing? And then the ship kind of tried to play it cool, and then they tried to lose them, and there was this. It was cool. It was kind of it reminded me of The Expanse. If in terms of how space combat is, where you're not exactly sure what's behind that planet, because if something obscures something, you can't see it. So you're what's out there? And if it hits me, I could get smoked in one hit. And that kind of tense, submarine warfare.
That's what I was gonna say, Sub Hunter.
Yeah, it's so tense, and it's all the players just that the whole time, just just tense.
It's like hunting for Khan in the Nebula.
Exactly. I don't think he thinks in 3 dimensions, Captain.
Yeah, he comes out of a cloud and messes you up. No, he had the upper hand until the end. So he was pretty smart.
So you started. That's really interesting. So it sounds like CyborgPrime really started with the idea of the convention of May Day, and
Yeah, and once I realized that there was like people that there, I thought if I like something, there's probably other people in the world who like it too. So,
yeah,
I kind of just
well, it certainly seems to be the case. It seems like
yeah, right. Back then, uh, I also started the Traveler RPG headquarters on Facebook, and we're coming up on 2,000 members now, so that's been pretty successful.
Yeah, that's been great too. I've enjoyed that.
The coolest thing about this whole thing is networking and meeting other people. That's something like I always point out to people who, if they poo-poo college or university. I'm like, if you just go there and you take personal interest classes for audit, it's still a benefit, because you're going to meet all kinds of people there that you've never met, that you never would normally meet. Older people, younger people, people who have the same interest of you as you, and it's a networking opportunity. And I made a lot of really good friends in school, in college, and this is kind of like an extension of that. Like, so I've become like, some of the folks that I've met doing this are now super friendly, and we chat every day. Or they invited me to come play Traveler, and that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and you're right about it. It seems to me like everyone has been really kind and welcoming for the most part.
you really have. Yeah.
My observation has been, it's been like, I don't know, this is just me, but it's like 9 out of 10 people are really kind, which like astonishingly so. But then it just really sucks when 1 out of 10 aren't, and that's what happens.
Yeah,
I think
it is
it's
what
just
happens.
like, yeah,
When I first started my group, I was on other groups saying, "Hey, I started this group. Come join us." And people were shooting back with like, "I'm already in a Traveler group. Why would I want to be in another one? It just has the same people in it." Yeah. I was like, "Well, actually, it's totally different. This place has got a totally different vibe than my place. So why don't you come check it out? Or if you don't like it, stay here. I don't care." But don't
like,
don't
why did
ruin
they
it for
feel
other
that they
people.
needed to say that, right? Like, no.
People just oh man, I'm guilty of it too, but it's like, why did you bother to, nobody cares, why did you bother to say that? Let people
Yeah.
have let people have their things.
Yeah, I've run into just a couple of things like that where people have been discouraged, but like you said, but like overwhelmingly, everyone has like been helpful and just like, like you gave me this I'd never heard of this resource about Inspiration Pad, and
Astrosynthesis. Check it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. And that's gonna continue to grow the resources that I have and tools that I have to use and stuff. So, and that's been
Right.
the case. I think that's something that I have loved, and didn't get in video games. So this is another thing that I'm like, man, tabletop role-playing games are it for me. And one of the things is in the indie side of it. No shade on the brand side, although everyone knows, if you listen to the podcast, the goal of the podcast is to highlight and proliferate the world outside of the brand of D&D. Like that's the purpose of this podcast, by the way. And in the indie world, there's this fierce kind of spirit of collaboration and sharing things. It's really something. Like, everyone wants to share their stuff, and it's so cool.
Yeah, and I guess what my best advice would be, just if you're interested in talking to these people, or if we're in another topic area, and there you have somebody who you admire, or maybe not admire, but just think is interesting, just put yourself out there and say, "Hey, would you sit for an interview, or can we talk on the phone?" Or like, your stuff is so interesting to me, they'll be flattered, and they'll probably say yes, unless you're a weird creeper and you're like, I can see that you're at home. Right through your curtain. Don't say you're not home or you're busy. You can talk to me right now.
Oh, man.
As long as you're not weird like that, most people would be, the people like to be invited to do stuff and would be flattered if you asked them to. I was nobody who, I'm just a nerdy traveler fan with time on his hands because I didn't want to go back to my old job.
Well,
so
I think CyborgPrime, to me, the thing about the channel that's really special, first of all, the quality of the videos is super cool. Of course, we're going to include in the description at the end a link to the YouTube channel and also your website. But I really love a recent video of yours. It's kind of like why I like Traveler. Like it's just like one of the best and main videos out there. If you look up just what's up with Traveler, there's a few that you'll find, and that's a really good one. But the other thing is, like I'd mentioned before, this kind of repository of knowledge. It's just like a holocron of Mark Miller and all these other designers, Matthew Spring. You had what's that other author's name? The one that did all the Mongoose 1E stuff and did all the writing. You've had a bunch of writers on.
We've got Chris Griffin.
Yeah.
This year we're going to add Gear Landeskog and Martin Dougherty, which is...
Martin Dougherty is the guy I was thinking of, actually.
Yeah, he and I actually had a long interview today, and...
oh, cool.
And there's another person who's like so friendly, and we had a lot of stuff in common, and I think we'll continue being friends outside of Traveler.
Yeah.
Same thing with like Neil Thorpe. He's my bruv from another mother.
I just listened to that interview. I listened part of it. I didn't finish it because sometimes what I'll do with these is I'll put it in my save list and I'll get to go for a walk and I'll get to listen to 10 or 20 minutes, right? And walk my dog. And then, so I was listening to that one today and that was really interesting.
He's like, he just ended up like where, I was like, do you have a scar on your left side? Because I have a scar on my right side. And, maybe we were separated at birth because we seem to share the same brain or something.
That's great.
We're like, so like we have the same humor and we ended up being friends and we chat all the time and like make snarky remarks and send each other memes and stuff. So
that's awesome.
I never would have met him if not for this event.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess, but anyways, this stuff is there now. So like right now, if someone wanted to figure out, like, get into the head of like Mark Miller, what's up with Traveler, like, tell me what this is about. Really, there's 2 interviews out there I know of, the 2 big ones on the internet. If you want to find and get in Mark Miller's head, there's Deku podcast, and actually you're very similar in a lot of ways to Deku, except for sci-fi and Traveler. And then there's yours, and those are that will be there, for us to use.
Perpetuity.
In perpetuity, yeah. And I think that's really important. I mean, I don't know about you, but to me, Traveler, I love space games, and I think we have Traveler to thank. I mean, I know Mark Miller says, I just wanted to make D&D in space. Of course, James Ward had already done that with Metamorphosis Alpha in 1975. So that's the first sci-fi game. But the first sci-fi simulator where you can do things like travel to other planets and how does a planet work and spaceship and how does spaceship combat work. So we have Traveler to thank for, like Elite, right? Elite 1984 and then the whole series from then. I think we could say we probably have Traveler to thank for every other thing like that, like X-Wing and TIE Fighter and Wing Commander and Star Citizen and, of course, Starfield now.
All that stuff has a little nugget of Traveler in it because, like, Mark just had such a good forward-thinking view and, like, modular attitude for putting that together that it had long legs, and here it is still walking almost 50 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it stands, and it's gone through multiple editions and had a GURPS version and a Hero System version, and it's just a popular, well-loved, good reputation. Nothing skeezy about it. It's kind of like a wholesome game. Mark wanted it to be that way, and I think he succeeded.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's man, it's brought me so many hours of just, I guess, solo play is what you would call it. But it's imagination food. It's brain. I think it altered my brain.
Yeah, that's cool. So tell me about May Day this year. Like, what's happening in May Day this year?
So what we do on May Day is I try to solicit questions from the community about like what they would like to hear and from whom. And this year I put out I usually will put on a live show with pre-recorded interview B-rolls. But last year was like a 12-hour stream, and so this year I'm going to have even more speakers. I think we're going to have like 15 interviews, and I don't want to have a 16-hour, 17-hour stream. So I think this year I'm going to put them all, release them all on the day, and people can just watch them in whatever order they want.
And it'll be kind of like in a live format where everybody can like chat and stuff, and it's on like the channel. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll just release them. People can watch them. They'll all be premiered, I guess. And then I'll also maybe I'll do like a 2-hour panel, and I'll just invite whoever wants to come to hang out, and we'll tell dumb jokes and trivia questions and give out promo prizes. We've been giving out some great prizes over the years. What we've done, I tried to have a standard kind of thing where we have interviews, we have door prizes, we have an after hours hangout, and then I try to add some things in. Like one year we had like a sci-fi bardic, if you will, like a carousing contest, and people told traveler jokes and poems, and it was kind of funny. Traveler limericks and stuff, yeah. And then
I mean, that's just good stuff to like jot down to have in like the spaceport bars, like right? Just to get all of it together and just pull from that when you need it.
Right. So people came up with some funny jokes and had some puns and stuff, and so that's hard to do because people it's hard to get like performing arts people get stage fright and stuff. So but some people don't, and they'll come in with the funny song that they made. One guy actually Ken Burnside from Ad Astra Games sang a song about spice to the tune of "Don't Make Your Brown Eyes Blue." All blue.
Yeah.
So it was it's fun. So I kind of I have some experience in in this medievalist society hosting events. So I kind of just carried that over to Sci-Fi Land, and getting back to like they're kind of transferable. One of the things that I noticed from interviewing all these folks is that I asked them, how did you start playing? And they all started playing D&D. So everybody's like, it's a big fantasy and sci-fi crossover. I don't know why. Maybe people are just not happy where they are in time. They don't want to be anachronists forward or backwards. I don't know. But yeah, a lot of people who are into sci-fi games, and even people like in other like Honor Harrington groups and stuff, they're also playing the SCA. So
interesting.
That is an interesting thing I just picked up on.
What kingdom are you in?
Outlands.
Okay.
Yeah, I was the Outlands web minister for 6 years.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So that's like their regional. Out my way, your kingdom is basically your time zone. So I had like 20 local web ministers under me, and then I just managed the kingdom website. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, that seems like a important service for the SCA. Yeah, under what would that be? Under the exchequer or the seneschal of the kingdom?
Actually, it's a peer of the seneschal.
Here at the seneschal. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's an actual kingdom officer.
Ah, gotcha.
The only person above me was the king.
Nice. That's very cool.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So,
So there's
so
a lot
you're
of
saying a lot
carryover.
of a lot of Scadians also do sci-fi stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes sense to me because that's just an active mind, imagination, and a curious mind. Like
Mhm.
you know.
I think there's a lot of crossover to like Comic-Con too, you know, and maybe like game conferences. You know, well, obviously game conferences, but yeah, I'm thinking Comic-Con, SCA, and futurism seem to kind of have a intersecting Venn diagram.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Mhm.
How do you see? So, I mean, May Day obviously is an online convention.
Oh yeah,
How
that's
do
what I
you?
was going to get to. Sorry, I got distracted. Um, what ended up happening is when I started out just with the interviews and door prizes, and then Greg Cares came. No, first it was Patrick Canus wanted to add on a charity event where we would put on, or he would put on a traveler game, and then people could buy boons and banes through
Nice.
PayPal donations or whatever, and they could influence the game.
Yeah.
And so the first year we raised I think $2,000, and the next year we raised $3,000. Don't quote me on it, but all the records are on the website and my blog if you want to go look at previous years. So and then last year we did a charity for Keith Fry, who had just passed on, and he was the organizer of the original Traveler Con, which is still going, and so it helped with his final expenses. We had a duello, and all the children of the noble houses had to come together and do fisticuffs and fencing and pistols, and yeah, it was pretty fun. So we raised some money there, and then Greg Cares came along and said, I would like to be in charge of virtual online gaming. So we've had these like folks kind of like kind of clip in and be add-ons and just kind of be in charge of that. So I don't really have to mess around with all I have to do is help Greg promote the online gaming. All I have to do is help promote, you know, the other stuff, the charity games. Those are handled by the people who are handling them. And if there's any other people who have great ideas that could be add-ons and they want to be in charge of, reach out and let's see if it's something that can be added.
Yeah. Yeah. So
because I do want it to be like a virtual conference, you know, conference or
yeah.
you know, convention, if you will. So there should be all kinds of things to do, gaming and socializing and, you know, winning prizes and stuff like that. So that was my idea for the event anyway. And then hopefully that we would add things on, like the online gaming would grow bigger, and we'd bring new people in, and just bring new people into the hobby.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm certainly hoping to get in on one of those. So I'm excited about it.
Can I rewind for a second, because I
please.
never answered your question about Mark.
Oh.
So I wrote these computer utilities, and then Mark Miller's Traveler came out, and I wanted to write utilities for that, and so I wrote to him, and I said, hey, do you care if I like write some things for this? I could put them on my website, or maybe they'll be commercial or whatever. They're not going to really use your rules or anything, but I might use, like, you know, some entries on your tables and stuff. I said, yeah, sure, no problem. And that's when I realized that he wasn't British, because I always thought
Right.
Traveler being spelled with two L's was an English product. It is now.
And I mean,
but it wasn't at the
Mongoose is
time.
British, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the
So-
Steve Jackson conundrum. Is it British? Is it not British?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So I kind of had briefly already had contact with him, and it was cordial, super nice. But I was starstruck. I was like choked up. I was like, I didn't think I would be starstruck, but I was. And yeah, no, I thanked him for creating the game and what it meant. Told him what it meant to me, and yeah, I got a little choked up.
That's
But
wonderful.
yeah, it was a moment I'll always cherish. I was telling my
Awesome.
friends the other day, did you, back when we were starting to play Traveler, did you ever think I'd be interviewing Mark Miller? I mean, it's like hanging out with Gary Gygax or something, as a D&D
Yeah.
player. It's kind of is a big deal.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, it is. And yeah, to me it is, definitely is, and I super appreciate that he took his time and continues to take his time and is so gracious and nice to me. I made a piece of art with like a looks like a computer console and engineering with a button that says jump, and then it says destination, and I made different variations that say jump to Regina, or destination Regina, destination Rylanor, a destination Glisten. I made like 5 of them. But I looked them up, and they were all from his books back in the day. So I wrote to him and I said, hey, do you mind if I use these names? And I told him what it was for. I was printing these on stretch canvas and stuff, and he was like, yeah, I'll take, you have permission, and I'll take one. This is Regina. So it's like my first one went to Mark Miller. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that was very, I don't want to say, very rewarding to me to have that experience.
Yeah. Very
it's
cool. I
super
appreciate.
gracious.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. That's awesome. I also want to. I'll circle back to a couple of questions I was going to ask, kind of
Sure.
going ahead of the convention and the stuff like that. But I want to know about your product and what inspired it. This kind of synthetic game master product that you've been working on.
Yeah, well, people were freaking out about AI and AI art and AI.
People are still freaking out.
Yeah, they're still freaking
Still
out. pretty
freaking
hard.
out about it.
They're still freaking out. Well, so I was like, let me check this out and see. I'm a computer guy, so I'm always interested in tinkering with stuff and checking out new things. So I load that up, and I'm like, okay, it's like a fancy autocomplete. It ain't all that. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting. It sometimes seems like there's a person on the other end, but it was kind of generating caca, and I was like, people are really freaking out. So I started just playing with it. I was like, write a song, write a nursery rhyme, write a story about my dog Roxy, the talking dog. Because Roxy doesn't really talk. She just goes blah 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 blah, dog talk. But she always has something to say about stuff. And so it wrote this funny story. And so then I started thinking, well, my wife and I and our friends, we're always like coming up with these like funny stories about stuff. Like we make up characters, and then over the years we go, that's what so and so would say, and we like the character. And so we made up like this this sad story about this homeless waif in the medieval times who lost her leg in a horrible farm accident, and now does a one-leg wooden dance in the for the pub for tips, and whenever we'd listen to like maybe like medieval songs or something, or any song that has like a clippity clop sound in there, and my wife would pretend to like do her like wooden leg dance and stuff. Anyway, so we had this this little character that we made up, and we put it into the AI, and I basically gave this little briefing about it, and then it told this like totally awesome story all about the orphan girl and how she always dreamed to dance in the Royal Ballet, and how she went on an adventure. People saw her dancing in the pub, and they found out her story, and so they escorted her on this adventure to the capital city, where she eventually danced in the Royal Ballet or whatever. And we were just laughing. It was so funny. And so I thought this poignant story of the little orphan girl, it was so funny, and it just came up with it. It really filled in around the little skeleton that I gave it. So I was like, this thing might have storytelling potential. And so I started. I constructed a really complex prompt telling it how to recreate a text adventure, and I started running that, and I ran my tests live on my channel. So if anybody's interested, they can go look at those. But I was surprised by how well it worked. But the thing is it would degrade over time because the AI only has a chat window that's of a certain size, and so when you're talking
Oh,
about stuff, it's falling off the back. So if the AI gives you a sword and then you don't mention the sword, here it's going off the chat, off the end, and then you go, oh yeah, about that sword, it's going to go, what sword? Because it can't see the sword in its memory, it's gone.
yeah.
So,
I've tried that a few times with some
mhm,
language models, and that does seem to happen where the initial conversation is brilliant, and you can almost get lost. Like, is this a person? But then if you continue and try to have a sense of persistence,
mhm,
then it will start to go crazy.
right,
I observe it like um, it'll start repeating itself at a certain
yeah,
point, or it won't make sense anymore, or it'll refer to something, and sometimes even something basic. I'm not talking about your program, I'm talking about
mhm,
like the ones I've experimented with, where it'll suddenly forget your gender or who the person is, or
right. That's
like
because of this
it'll
this
literally
context
like
window.
completely lose like something that to us would be like, maybe I won't remember that person's name, but I know they're a person, I know they exist or something, and then
Mhm,
it suddenly breaks that illusion.
right.
Anyways, yeah, that's been my observation.
Right, that's what happened to us. We were exploring the ship. We went into the storage room. We found some granola bars. We asked what kind they were. Later on, we asked what kind they were again, and it was a completely different selection of
Uh,
granola bars. Um, and it just took our word for it that there were granola bars.
yeah,
So this context window is kind of smallish. It's a varying sizes, but they made it kind of they've increased it by 4 times since my initial experiment. So it can hold a lot more of the story in its brain. And so what I did was I devised a way to have long-term memory, and important things get saved to long-term memory, and it can be recalled. So the story never goes off course. It always stays on it always stays on topic, so it's not going to lose the scenario. And anything it gives you when you check your inventory, it's gonna still be there hours later after it's long off the AI's chat context. So so yeah, that's how that came to be. And so I was like, how can I experiment? And then I just became compelled and obsessed, and I learned Python, and I learned how to access the GPT API, and I created a virtual game master, and it can simulate any game genre. And the way I
cool.
did that was by not including game mechanics, because in the end it's all about the story, and the game mechanics are just something that was added in there to turn the story into a game, that can have numbers that that can be fudged and
I mean, it
gamed.
should be able to do that, right? Like, so
It
if
could,
it,
but
like I have to know that you take d6 damage per 10 feet, but a language model doesn't need, like, it doesn't need to add that
it does. You
abstract filter.
can
Like, it's gonna know, like, it's gonna just,
you can do that if you want, but instead what I've done is you take severe damage. It's you
well,
as the
yeah, even
person.
further, you don't even need the numbers, like,
Yeah,
because
it's
that,
abstracted.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so you call up a character sheet, and it'll tell you like your status, as far as your character is defined within the system. So I have, like, you choose an archetype. Like, let's say you're playing like if you're playing you want to play like a space opera, and you've chosen a scenario where you have to stop the evil space fascists. So then it gives you like some archetype characters. Maybe the rebel, maybe the captain, maybe the whatever, and it'll keep generating archetypes with their own set of skills and character flaws. So maybe I'm afraid of bugs, or maybe I am a liar, or maybe I'm prideful, or whatever. And so it makes these kind of like nuanced characters, and but they're suitable for the adventure. So if you're going in a toxic wasteland, you might have a scavenger might be one of the people, the characters, or you can also put in your own character. So and so yeah, it tracks you. You can go mad, you can die. If you're playing a Lovecraftian adventure, you can go insane or be consumed by the madness of the monsters. Or if you're playing, it just surprised me because it's so good. We were investigating. We're on a mission to investigate a distress signal coming from the planet. And we get there, and I ask, do we have any reconnaissance drones? Yes, you have reconnaissance drones. Okay, give me the specs of the reconnaissance drones. It gives me the specs. I say, okay, show me the administrator control panel for this drone. It simulated a computer screen with choices: 1 to like set destination, 2 configure, 3
Wow.
like an old school thing. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to modify this drone to tune in on the things that we're searching for on this anomaly. We're looking for missing crew members, and so I was going to look for their biosigns in the anomaly. And so it let me do that, and it modified the thing, and then I sent it out, and it sent back telemetry, and it was like super psycho good. It was just those things where it sometimes forgot stuff, but that was a problem. You can't have a text adventure game where you're given a sword or a laser blaster, and then you look in your inventory and it's not there.
Yeah.
So I came up with a way of fixing it, and now it's super awesome. And I'm right now, as of this recording, I have a working prototype. It was in multi-user mode, so I had it at a point where you could log on, I could log on, and we had separate games going on that weren't interfering with each other. And when we came back, we could continue.
Wow.
But I had to make some modifications to kind of start from scratch, because I started as a one user game, and I wanted to like design it from the ground up as a multi-user game. So that's what I'm doing.
Wow.
That's what I'm doing with my time.
Mud Renaissance incoming.
Yeah.
Thanks to
Single player mud, though. It's single player, but it's multi-user in that multiple people can be online playing their own solo games.
wow.
There is a way, I guess, that you could play together, but that might be a hassle, kind of play by mail type thing.
Yeah, that is really cool. But I mean, in time, I think it seems to me these are things that as it expands into additional modes, and like you had mentioned, as it's able to kind of carry a whole lot more, then I mean, I think those things are going to be there. And they could supplement, like I'm thinking about my Traveler campaign right now, and we play online. For me, playing with a virtual tabletop, and then like you and I, they can't see us because it's on podcast, but we're talking via video, and you can see my eyes and my hands. And if you're not if you can read, what am I trying to say? If you're not
body language, or
some people can't read body language, but if you're most people who can, you can tell. I have all kinds of additional communication I'm offering, so I have all that, and we have the virtual tabletop, and I can scribble and everything. And because it's the internet, I find like elite players, like super people are on fire. I don't have to like, wish I could be playing a Traveler game. I can play a Traveler game right now. And like Father Chris that I met, I'd chatted with him about Traveler because I was interested, and that's actually how we met. And this guy like has the T5 books, and he's super into it. And well, anyways, in between sessions, I post like a summary of results, and then in lieu of Dungeons and Dragons type stuff where we do experience points, it's your cash flow. It's your money, because and and in between I have like a roleplay chat. But the purpose of the roleplay chat is I am very limited. So the purpose of the roleplay chat is to sort of invoice an official, this actually happened. So if you're, like I mentioned, Flammarion, if you're on Flammarion and you buy a revolver, you need to type into roleplay chat as a matter of record, Marcello spends 150 credits on 50 rounds of revolver bullets and a revolver. Right? But if I had this tool and it could operate across multiple modes with multiple users, I wouldn't even have to monitor it. And people could do multiple things between sessions, like they could manage their estate gameplay. There's a ton of stuff they could accomplish. So it looks like this could be a huge aid to my live game, because I don't have the time to manage all those details.
Sure.
And
Plus,
also every gamer's different. So some gamers are like me, they got kids and they don't have time to do that. Other gamers, one of our players had MS, and he was just like quadriplegic, and so he it was a big part of his life, and he wanted to engage a lot more, and this could help kind of make that much more equitable, where this person could engage with that a tremendous amount in a way that's meaningful for them, and then somebody else could engage with it in a way that is meaningful on another level. Anyways, okay, so like before we go, one of the things that we talk about with a few of the guests, there's been this idea of like, and you mentioned this, bringing new people into Traveler, and how the hobby needs new people, and also something that's been brought up a couple times, this idea of a Traveler renaissance. And some people say that we've been well into it, maybe with the introduction of Mongoose First Edition or Second Edition. Some people think it's a possibility, but we're not there yet. Some people think it'll never happen because of certain barriers. What do you think the future looks like for us science fiction tabletop role-playing game people? Like, what do you think the future looks like?
I think VTT and AI is going to add a lot to this. I mean, like, you can already, like, I'm after all these years, I got invited to play Traveler, and so I'm playing in a bi-weekly game. And,
Nice.
And finally, I'm like, I haven't played since I was a teenager. I've been a GM all this time, so it's pretty nice. But I decided I like to have fun and not take things too seriously. So I have like a scholar who's kind of very annoying, and he's got a social standing of 4, and so basically we're not playing in a place where nobility matters, and generally speaking, when you're playing Traveler, you roll your social standing as your charisma. So I'm just playing it as like a guy with I'm a scientist who has very poor social skills, and so I spend my time like complaining about like stuff, that minor inconveniences of life. Oh, the bed was lumpy. I'm like Dr. Smith smushed with Dr. Smith and Dr. Rodney McKay from Stargate Atlantis had a Tuvix accident. That would be Dr. Voss.
All right.
So he's like the last person you'd pick for your team, but also the first person you pick for your team, because even though he's annoying, he's gonna like help get you out of the bad situation.
Okay. So
where was I going with this? Okay, so what I do with the
you're
AI
you're talking about getting into a group, AI, VTT.
Right.
So I mean,
so how I get into this is like before the game starts, I might have the AI generate like science fiction flora and fauna, and then or scientific theories, and then I'll spend that adventure like prattling on about it. Oh, we're on this planet. Well, I can't
That's
wait.
awesome.
Such and such, sort of animal. Or do you think we can go to this place and look at this thing, or whatever, or there was a catastrophe and I have medics, so I'm helping triage people, and then I'm telling them about my esoteric scientific theories while they can't get away, because I'm giving it
Yeah.
first aid, you know. So, you can use AI for those kinds of things.
Right.
And then, like, as a GM,
The board, they didn't like this procedure I'm doing on you right now, but I
exactly.
find it quite favorable myself.
Let me tell you, as a xenologist, I've seen all kinds of animals, and well,
I
here's strange one.
tried this on a hiver once. It didn't bleed out.
Yes,
I
well,
think
it got a little
you'll be.
infected, but nothing that's. So yeah, so I do stuff like that, and I just have fun and crack everybody up, and we have a good time.
That's
But
great.
that's one of the things you can do with AI as a player. And then as a GM,
I want to note, like, something that's awesome about that is what I kind of call, like, what you're doing is you're taking on the responsibility of the game in a way similar to the GM, and that's like a great player. Like, a good player is somebody that's like, you know what, I'm responsible for this game too, and like the idea of like prepping as a player, that's awesome. So, anyways,
it's like it is cooperative storytelling.
Yeah,
right?
it's
So
cooperative, yeah.
I have my part to play. I'm not trying to upstage anybody. Everybody can play their own character the way they want. When they say, "Well, Dr. Voss, what do you think we should do?" And I go, "I don't know. I'm lactose intolerant, and I hope this doesn't have gluten in it." And they're like, "No, the plan. Oh yes, that. Yeah. Well, okay. According to my theories, he's very snobby. He looks down on people with lesser degrees and stuff. But I'm having fun playing it up as a low charisma guy.
Yeah. Okay,
but,
so would you say that like the
So I
days?
see more of that like playing out in the future.
Yeah, as opposed to, I mean,
Like
would you say
player
that
aids and GM aids?
the days of laying out a hex grid of space with a ship, like a ship,
Mini.
yeah, the minis, and also, but the ship layout, on a
Deck
table.
plans? Right.
Yeah, a deck plan. Thank you. And you've got that laid out on a table, and you're using pencil and paper. Would you say that's going to kind of be less? Like, there's going to be less of that, and there's going to be more digital tools, more interaction through multiple modes of tools, like what we were saying before. And virtual tabletop will become this, like, yes, we're looking at each other in the face, we're seeing the human parts, but we're also combining a lot of tech and a lot of I don't know.
Right. Well, as this stuff becomes more ubiquitous and people are more comfortable with it, it's going to have like a higher adoption, and
Well, what prevents us at that point? Where is the singularity point where it's like all of the power and verisimilitude of a video game with all of the improvisation in free form of tabletop? Like, is there a singularity we're going to get to where it's like indistinguishable?
If there is, we're pretty close, because I mean, if you look at like Roll20, that's already very video game-ish, and then there's also a lot of these things coming to market now where the GM just like drops down a forest and then blocks out a castle, and poof, now there's a castle, and so you can kind of like build maps on the fly and put your characters in there, and that visualization. Some people like the theater of the mind, and some people like visualization and everything in between. The thing that I like about visualization is now, like, okay, let's take a step back to theater of the mind. When I describe a scene, no matter how intricate and awesome I describe it, each of those 5 players is going to have a different image in their head of what I'm talking about. If I show you a picture of the monster, now we know, or all know what we're talking about. Or if I show you where everybody's standing in the tavern, now you can't attack the guy because there's a table of old ladies in the way or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess it's up to each group to balance that. But I kind of think like with things like Tabletop Simulator, Foundry, Fantasy Grounds. I haven't played Fantasy Grounds, but it's a big one up there. That's where most of the Traveler stuff gets put out. Those things are going to become, I think, just more and more accessible. Like the cool thing. All right, there's something to be said about having a local game and having your friends come over to your house once a week and you guys play Traveler and have camaraderie. But people move away, they go off to college, Maybe you move to this town, you don't know anybody. VTT offers a way of opening
Yeah.
up the entire world as now your game.
Like I want to meet Voss, like, right? So like, I mean, I know your game's full, it's cool, but just as an example, like I'm like, man, this guy's super into Traveler, this, super into his character. Chances are I'm not gonna find that within like 100 miles. Like I'm just gonna I'm gonna find it from Frank, and so like I get to play with Frank because like of these tools and this technology and that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like they all, most of them have player matching, like Roll20. You can get in there and see like if somebody's hosting a Traveler game. Like you said, you could probably get in on one right now. There's, you're taking a risk, putting it out there to people you don't know.
But you would in real life. I mean,
yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. The last 3 times I tried to get a group together in real life, weirdos. Like for real, just being real. Like seriously. And I a couple of them I like met in advance out somewhere and chatted. I didn't invite them over, right? And I don't know that I would. Like unless I knew someone nowadays. I mean, it's a dangerous world out there. And so here's another layer is, and certainly there's cybersecurity and it's very serious, and that is an element, but there's an element of safety, actually, like a real safety, and a person can take the control of their own safety. Whereas if you go play at a library or a game store, I don't know, maybe not.
Right.
So.
No, you're right. If you're playing online and somebody rubs you the wrong way, or they're just an ass, you can block them. You don't ever have to see them again. And then like you said, it's no guarantee that your people in person won't do that. I had at my table, I thought that they would get along, but stupid me. One was like a very liberal vegan, and the other was a very conservative Christian, and they almost came to blows.
And I was like, I hate that. That's something that this play club is like very much. That's kind of one of our major war songs. Is like, no, we're all humans here. We're all savants, and and everybody's so different. And when I say different, like no, seriously, like really different. And we kind of try to do that thing where it's like, no, actually, really you must accept that people are different.
If you can accept that people are coming from their own place and we're all just people trying to figure out how to get through life, you're not going to stand much of a chance in a Traveler world where there's aliens of every type and sexualities of every type and customs of every type. You're just going to, stay in your spaceship and be a curmudgeon and never come out because of the scary, weird world out there, Why are you playing? Why are you into sci-fi? If you're intolerant to things.
That's something I love about Traveler. I love that it's that sort of. I think that's something that Traveler teaches, and I don't think D&D. My other co-host, and when we did fantasy in season 1, we talked about this, like the idea of race as class, like in BX versus race plus class. And one of the problems with because I was extolling the virtues of race as class, because if you have a elf who it can be a fighter or a magic user, and the human can be a fighter or a magic user, you have what I call the human with a rubber mask problem, which is that sort of like in Star Trek, ultimately there isn't anything truly alien. And something I love about Traveler is aliens are truly alien and uncomfortably so. And that's good, like the sense that like speaking of vegans, what's that vegan alien race? The one that the Kukri, or like the Vargar are pretty anthropomorphized. Obviously the uplifted races, but again, like the Hiver. And
that's something I always appreciated about. You ever see Farscape?
I love Farscape. I love how painfully uncomfortable. Because it really makes you realize that we do have these spaces, we have our tribes and we have our spheres, and when you end up on Mora and people are putting slugs in your ear so you can talk, like you're like, this is deeply uncomfortable.
Right.
And that's good.
Yeah, so out of
That's good
place.
sci-fi. That's great.
Yeah, I like the fact that the Jim Henson Company was involved in that, and so, most of the aliens are not human. Okay, there are humanoids, yes,
Yeah.
but then there are just weird things.
Yeah,
And
Farscape was so good with that. Yeah.
yeah, and Star Wars does that to an extent too, with their weirdly shaped, creatures, and
Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
you get humans with a mask if there's no difference between the two races, but as soon as you add in like, oh, they're slightly psionic, so now you have betazoids, or they eat a lot of this weird stuff that worms poop out, and now they can see the future, so
Yeah.
now you're kind of in Dune. So it's just all kinds of weirdness out there, and that's the wonder, I think, that keeps me liking Traveler, because there's always something new and weird around the next corner.
Yeah.
And I like to keep the adventures mixed up and kind of have a little twist, or things aren't what you expected, or you think it's going a certain way and then you realize you were terribly mistaken. So yeah, that's what I like about it. The Mark said it too, like, it's space cosmopolitan, and you're gonna meet
Space. Yeah, that's a good
every
point.
kind of person and from every kind of background.
Yeah.
And you've got to learn to tolerate that in the game and also in your life, because you may come across somebody at the gaming table who doesn't see eye to eye with you in politics, but man, they're hilarious, a Traveler, and you can be Traveler friends.
Yeah.
Stay off the sore topics, whatever it is, gardening, politics, whatever.
Yeah, that's also a thing. I think the opposite thing about kind of looking at xenophobia is as far as like the inherent discomfort we have when we leave our bubble and you're there on Mora on Farscape, and there's no say there, you don't get your bubble anymore. Like that's cool, but on the other side of it, the other thing I think that can teach, that I think is really cool, is how very little we humans actually are different. Like when we're talking about humans aren't actually that different.
Right.
That's one thing I try to tell people. I was in the Army for 13 years, and I've been all over this planet. Like Han Solo, I've been all over, like from one end of this planet to the other, and I've never seen anything. Anyways, no, human beings, like you have like this wild panoply of interesting things about and differences, but really there are these things that like seriously are the same. Like I was in a combat zone in the Sinai, and the people there, I served across from Gaza, 5 miles to the southwest of there, the last time they had a crisis in 2014, 10 years ago, and we helped resolve that crisis. That was kind of a tale of like you had these two cultures. And I remember, this is just one example, but I'm from like the South. I'm from Kentucky. We have a high context culture, so like we won't tell you things directly. And I remember going to basic training, and I would go to training with these guys from the Northeast, and they were very direct, and it was very offensive to me. And I had this culture clash, this culture shock. And then I developed the Army culture. And in the Army, they expect you to be very candid and very upfront and direct. And so I developed that. And I learned this culture. Well, I go over to the Sinai, and I worked with Arab partners. And I remember this day, I was a captain. I was walking into his office. I had my face down in this briefing. And I just walked into his office talking. I was like, all right, we got this and this and this and this, right? And he said, whoa, Ross, how are you today? You know what I mean? Because like
that observe protocol.
That culture. Well, I mean, it can't be summed up to say it's better or worse. It's just, but it had something to offer me, and it challenged me either way, right? Because being direct is good, getting to the point and getting something done is good, but at the same time, he's like, wait, I'm a person. Like, say hello and like let's talk for a second. And that was a part of like that Arab culture. Is like, hey, let's take like 5, 10, 15 minutes to just chat for a second, and be people first, and then we'll get to this briefing.
Right.
And
Because when it boils down to it, I mean, we all have basic needs, as humans.
yeah,
Food, shelter, camaraderie, security.
yeah.
That's what everybody wants, and a
no
good
one,
future for their family.
yeah, no one wants a bad future for their family. No one wants pain. No one wants suffering. So like we actually all want the same stuff. Maybe that all sounds idealistic, but I would argue that I saw the hardcore. No, this is very tangible and practical. Actually, that's what I would argue. But, anyways, yes, and anyways, Traveler I think can offer that better than D&D. I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I think, I mean, not to edit, this might be.
I love D&D. I play D&D.
I love
every
D&D,
week.
but at its core, it was a racist game. That it was races. Well, races fighting against the orcs hated the elves, and the elves hated the dwarves. And why? Because they were dwarves, and for no other reason. And it all boiled down to their race. But with Traveler, it's not like that. It's like they're either mutual respect, or it's not about your race, because there's so many millions of different ones. The conflicts are probably more over territory or profit, or
and really, can you even have a single rubric, right? Because maybe it is in one sector, but it can't possibly necessarily be that case all the way on the other end of charted space.
Right.
Yeah,
it gives you space to explore those what ifs, that they carry forward. Now, some episodes of Star Trek are better than others, but they always were forward thinking. They had the first interracial kiss. They had a multinational crew. They had women who were officers. I mean, these are things that were all new and had never been shown on TV before. And then later on, you have, they were always taking something that was going on at the time and exaggerating it forward. What if young Wesley stepped on a plant and now he has to have the death penalty because it's a sacred plant, or what if we took, I don't know, vegetarianism to an extreme, or what if we took
that kind of speculative fiction.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I like. You go to a planet and the currency there is social currency of likes and dislikes, or pick some social commentary and exaggerate it, and now you have a good adventure.
Yeah, for sure. Frank, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. Like I said, in the description, we're going to include a link to your YouTube channel so people can check out those interviews. And we'll also include a link to CyborgPrime Games so everybody can look out at your other products and sign up. I think there's a sign-up feature at the bottom, if I recall correctly. So
Yes.
there is, yes. And a Discord and other things, too. So people can join the Discord and chat. So, Frank, thank you.
Get on our mailing list. We won't spam you, I promise.
Well, it's good spam. it's what you want to hear about.
It's jalapeno spam.
Sci-fi
It's the
and
best spam.
Yeah. Frank, thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
Hey man, thanks for inviting me. It's an honor to be here. So thanks again.
Mythic Mountains RPG is a private online play club that focuses on folk RPGs. Folk RPGs are the games that belong to all of us. They're what actually happens at a table between friends. It's their voice that has the authority on what is fun and what works for them. Weekly, we upload our games to allow others to sit in with us. The channel isn't monetized. We don't own the artwork, music, software, or games shown in these actual plays, and you can find links to their authors in the description. Like, subscribe, and share if you wish, or don't. Just like games in person, you're welcome to pull up a chair, sit in, and watch some of our games. No performances, no fancy equipment, just regular people playing folk pencil and paper role-playing games and having a good time. We hope these games will prove a source of enjoyment to anyone just wanting to listen in, anyone looking for examples of how actual groups run and play folk RPGs, and most importantly, if you haven't found your group yet, you're welcome here at ours.